Hi, and welcome to Coaching Voices podcast. I'm Pravin Sharma, an executive and leadership coach and consultant with over 2 decades of experience in the industry. I truly believe in the transformative power of coaching and the profound impact it can have on people's lives. In each episode, we dive into candid conversations with seasoned coaches, exploring what coaching really is and whether it's the right path for you. Together, we uncover how you can unlock your full potential and step confidently into leadership roles within your organization. In today's segment of Coaching Voices podcast, I'm really thrilled to announce Jeff Katz as our guest. Jeff is a well-known personality for so many varieties of reasons. Some know him from Philadelphia native as a former police officer. Some remember him from the world of professional wrestling, while others have read his work as a columnist for Boston Herald, while plenty of folks enjoy his award-winning shows on radio and television. The journey for both of his sons has been rather typical, but his daughter's has been filled with special challenges. Julia's recently turned 21, but she's always been a toddler in many ways because of her global disabilities and special needs. Jeff is a well-respected public speaker and coach who is in high demand around the country for his keynote speeches, including his favorite entitled Julia's Quest for Cookies, that details how Julia, with a development age of 18 months, successfully makes her way from the safety of her room to the kitchen pantry where she samples every single cookie. Jeff shares Julia's story in the book Elevate and Empower, which is an Amazon bestseller. In today's conversation, we'll dive into Jeff's diverse experiences, his passion for storytelling, and the lesson he learned along the way. Let's get started. Hey Jeff, welcome to Coaching Voices. How you doing today?
I am doing well, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for asking, Jeff. And I truly appreciate your time and your dedication in coming to our show and talking to us today. Let's kick off our conversation by talking about your background.
Absolutely. Well, number one, I appreciate you asking me to be here, and I'm always happy to share some different parts of that journey. I grew up in a working class neighborhood in Philadelphia, a blue collar section called Oxford Circle. And I always try and explain to people that Oxford Circle, purely working class, purely blue collar. These were men, for the most part, who took showers when they came home from work because they had spent the day making something or fixing something or digging something. And so those are my roots. When I looked out my back window as a kid, I saw a dirty alleyway with trash cans. And I was determined that that was not really what I wanted to do long term. I didn't necessarily want to be in that particular position. I didn't want to look at the trash cans forever. And I didn't want my kid someday to be in position those trash cans. So I was on track. I was going to go and pursue higher education. I was going to be an attorney, and then my father, in the midst of everything, had a major heart attack, and I had to go to work, and I did. Wound up as a police officer in Philadelphia, and learned an awful lot as a police officer. And I spent a couple of years doing that. I enjoyed it, and all these many years later, 35 years plus later, I'm still friends with many of the men that I worked with as a cop. But it gave me a very good grounding. And I went off and I got into broadcasting. I got very active in the police union in Philadelphia, and that was a quick way to be reminded that I'm going to be promoted. And so I probably wanted to look for something else at some point. And so I got into radio. And the first job I had in radio was in sales. And I was absolutely positively the worst salesman in the history of radio salesmen. I was bad. I was really, really bad. And I was able eventually to transition to the on-air side, the broadcasting side. And that's where I've been in large part since then. And I've lived and worked all over the country and had a very, very interesting life with that. But along the way, I also thought, I want to be able to help people. I love helping folks get to where they'd like to be. I wanted to share my insight. I wanted to be able to give people a flashpoint for themselves where they could say, okay, well, this guy was really bad at this or really good at this, and I can take a lesson from that. And so many, many years ago, I went and I did a number of coaching training sessions, wound up getting my certification from the Zig Ziglar organization, Ziglar Legacy Coach, and also did the John Maxwell program, and now part of the Certified Maxwell Leadership Team. And so that's where I am at this point. I love sharing opportunities with people to help them get from where they are to where they want to be.
John Maxwell is one of the highly regarded, most respected, and prominent figure in the area of leadership and coaching. Give us a little bit about what takeaway that you earned from going into his class.
Boy, it's a tough thing, to say that you just got one thing out of it. I think what I took from my experience learning through the Maxwell program, getting to spend some time with John and his team in Orlando a couple of years back, really was humility. John Maxwell stood on that stage at one particular event, and he said, who here could stand up and give a speech? Could you just give a speech right now without any thought about it, preparation, what have you? And most of us in that room had done public speaking. I do public speaking all the time. I'm out there speaking to organizations and groups and things of that sort. And I think everybody was like, oh, yeah, I could do that. And I knew in my core that I could certainly do that. And he said, and you would be doing a terrible disservice to whoever it was that asked you to speak. Not preparing, not knowing what their issues were, not really understanding what the problem was that you were going to solve for them. And I thought, well, here's John Maxwell, right? I mean, John Maxwell could probably wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you could point him in some direction and say, John, stand over there and speak for an hour and inspire people and help them. And he could do it. But he said, I would never in my life at this point think about doing any sort of a speech or any sort of a presentation without properly preparing. And that was a huge takeaway for me.
I know that pivoting the career is always a challenge. You mentioned that you at one time wanted to become an attorney, then became a police officer, then went into the broadcasting, in the radio, and then you went to the sales, which did not work out for you. You came back into the radio. And then also you found this understanding, or this is what you are doing right now, is helping people out through your life coaching practices. I would like to know more about this life coaching, because I heard a lot about life coaching, right? So what it is, how it's done.
Oh, absolutely. When you start talking about life coaching, you talk about coaching, invariably it seems like you start with the negatives, right? Coaching is not counseling. I'm not going to help you, nor is any other reputable coach going to help you because you had a really bad childhood and your mom abandoned you or your father didn't like you or things of that sort. Those are things you go and you work with a counselor, you work with a therapist on. Coaching is all about forward momentum. I always ask people when they think about coaching, think about where you would hear that word. And invariably people say, oh, well, sports, right? Every team has a coach. Every good player has a coach. And so that's what we are. Those of us in the coaching space, that's exactly what we are. We're not going to make you great at what it is that you do, right? If you're a world-class home run hitter, there's no coach that's going to come alongside you and make you a great hitter. What they're going to do is say, I can help you. I will help you to really maximize your potential, to hit more home runs. But I can't give you that innate skill. Right. And so that's really what coaching is all about. It's saying to somebody, first thing you need to do is you need to identify why you want to do something. Coaching is also about accountability. It's easy so many times for people to say, I'm going to do such and such, And then it just floats off into the ether, right? Oh, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'll do that someday, or at some point I'll do this, or I think I'm going to do that. Coaching is about saying to that person, okay, you've identified exactly what your goals are. Now, what's our plan? How are we getting there? And holding that person accountable each week or every 2 weeks or twice a week, whatever the schedule might be that you've set up with them. But it's about accountability. And that is something that people need. And it's something that when they're working with the proper coach in the proper way, man, they absolutely can thrive.
It's also about creating that partnership, and with that partnership, building that relationship where you're taking your clients to an ultimate path where the client is looking for something, some kind of missing link in there, and you are there to connect that missing link for the client. Okay.
Well, again, I think it starts with that person who has actually taken that first step and said, all right, there are things I would like to accomplish. There are things I want to do. There are things I want to do differently. There are strengths that I want to maximize, or there are weaknesses that I try to like to address and make better. That first step, reaching out to a coach, is a giant leap, really.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeff, and the reason I ask you that question is because, like you said, there are lots of misconception about coaching. I mean, whenever we do coaching, people always like, oh, Prabin, I need this help. I mean, come on, help me out. And I really can. I mean, how can I go into your thought process and extract it out? I mean, it's your journey, right? I'm there as a partner, right? So that's the message a lot of people do not understand to begin with.
Yeah. There are a lot of folks who don't quite understand what it is. And that's okay. I mean, I don't have any concept of physics. And the way things are going, I don't think I ever will. Nobody's ever going to really explain it to me in a way that I can understand it. And I think for some, coaching is the same thing. They don't quite understand what it is really all about. There's so many different images that have been painted in the media that confuses it. But that's why probably I go back to this idea of the athlete, maximizing that athlete's ability, that talent. You're not going to give them those skills per se. They already are a solid hitter. They're a solid three-point jumper. Your job is to help them maximize that, hold them accountable. And it's the rules about 1,000 or 10,000 how many times you have to do something to become an expert at it. So if somebody says, well, I want to hit that 3-point shot every time, and I spend a half hour or so on the basketball court every once in a while taking shots, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for them to waste my time or your time or anybody else's if you're not willing to put in the work. And ultimately, it's not the coach who's, quote, putting in that work. It's the coach who's holding you accountable for putting in that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jeff, you've been around the block. I mean, so just before that, nobody starts their career as a coach, right? So ultimately they pivot that into the coaching based on what they have done in the past, right? So there's some kind of correlation in there. Absolutely. As a motivational speaker, what are the core messages you aim to deliver to your audiences in this coaching space?
Well, I have a couple of different keynote speeches that I deliver. I have 4 keynote speeches, and I don't think you can have more than about 4 or 5 and really be able to offer any sort of value. If you say, oh, I speak on everything, or I can coach you on anything, I just don't think that's the reality of it. So when it comes to businesses, I have 2 specific speeches that I deliver. One of them transcends a lot of areas. I call it the quest for cookies. And the quest for cookies is really about my daughter, Julia. Julia is severely disabled. Julia is 21 years old chronologically, but developmentally, Julia is about 18 months old. She doesn't speak. She has difficulty walking, and she's in many ways always going to be a baby. She's going to be 18 months old forever and ever. And the lesson that I take from that is to share with people that she somehow, some way figured out how to get out of her room, navigate our house. She doesn't understand stairs or uneven flooring, but she did. She made her way through the entire house. She came through the kitchen, and Julia doesn't understand sharp or hot or dangerous. She didn't touch the stove. She didn't grab a knife. She made her way to the pantry, and she took out every single cookie in the pantry. And while she's in the pantry, I had to tell you, probably she didn't take out the bag of rice. She didn't take out the baking soda. She knew what those cookies were, and that's what she grabbed from there. And so I share that story certainly with other parents of special needs kiddos, and they're inspired and they're hopeful. And in a business setting, I say to people, if Julia can identify what her cookie is and go get it, then you can't have an obstacle. You can't tell me that somebody said, oh, I don't want to buy that, or no, I don't really want that service. If you're just going to give up, then that's on you, because Julia didn't give up. Julia was able to identify what that goal was and go out there and get it. And the other speech that I deliver specifically for business folks is called Lessons from the Worst Salesman in History. I told you that my first job in radio was actually in radio sales. So I went out there trying to sell people commercials. The problem was I didn't have any concept of what I was selling. I did not understand what I was selling, but I was trying to sell it. Well, that does a terrible disservice. It does a terrible disservice to that person I might have sold a commercial to, because it's not going to work for them. And then they're going to turn around and tell all of their friends, radio advertising doesn't work. I had to look at that and say, the lesson here, and the lesson again that I share with salespeople, is to know what your product is. What is it that you're offering? What is it that you are providing? And become an expert in that. If you are offering pieces of air, that's what radio people do in terms of sales. They sell 30 seconds of air or 60 seconds of air. You need to understand what the value is. You need to understand how that brings customers through the door of a retail business. You need to understand how that motivates people to call and make an appointment for some sort of a service. So there are the lessons to be learned, and you have to identify them. And the reality is none of it is easy. For some people, it might be easier, but it's not easy for anyone.
All right, let's dive into the shaping of your career. The shaping your career as a coach and the prior experience as a law enforcement. What kind of correlation that exists between these two?
Well, the biggest takeaway from time in law enforcement was how to immediately figure out if somebody was being honest with you. You get a real good baloney detector, and you learn very, very quickly if somebody is being upfront and honest with you, or if they are just full of it. And that was my big lesson. That was the big takeaway that translates into the coaching sphere, into the speaking sphere. I need to be able to almost immediately understand if somebody's serious about what it is they say they want to do. If somebody reaches out to me and says, all right, Jeff, I want to work with you, and here are some of the things I'd like to address, and here's where I want to get better. If in speaking with that person, I have that sense that they're not really serious about it. No, and it doesn't matter how good a coach I am. If they're not serious about it, I can't help them. And I will say to them, I don't think I'm the right fit for you. There might be somebody else who might be able to help you. There might be somebody else who would be able to get you sort of over the line. But in this case, I don't think I'm your guy.
Right. As I mentioned to you earlier, while we were talking at that time, that the primary reason I established this, I would say we established this coaching podcast is to help others choose coaching. So from that definition, what qualities do you think are essential for someone considering a career in coaching?
I think you have to be honest with yourself. The same way that we're talking about holding potential clients to account, saying, okay, are you serious about this? Are you being honest with yourself? Are you going to have some sort of standard that you are going to hit? There are a lot of people who want to help, and some people are, I think, wired to help in different ways. You might be drawn to social work. You might be drawn to a therapeutic session, counseling.
Yeah.
And if you think that you're interested in coaching, you need to explore all of those different aspects. You need to look at it, I would say, probably, and as somebody who is thinking about getting a coach, so that you fully understand what coaching is not, and then go down the list and say, okay, well, you know what? Actually, I think I do want to help people deal with childhood issues that involve family relationships. Okay, well, I think that's great.
Right.
But your path is going to be through counseling and social work and psychology, and not coaching.
Yeah.
If you are looking at this and saying, well, I was sort of a B-level baseball player, and my coach, my hitting coach, man, he worked with me every single day.
Right.
And I got to the point where I was hitting 50 home runs in a high school season. I get what coaching is, and that's what I want to do. And I think that's when you say this is the right pathway for you.
Jeff, what advice you have for somebody who just started their coaching practice and they're struggling to find the clients? On the other side of the spectrum, they're thinking about, I don't know if I'm in the right career, I should quit.
I think the piece of advice number one, don't get discouraged. Don't think, oh my gosh, I've told people that I'm doing this coaching but nobody's coming. I've been doing this for a month or 2 months or 3 months, and that's it. Forget about it. I'm folding the tent up. I think you have to be committed to it. I know that you have to believe in yourself in exactly the same way that you want to help your clients believe in themselves. And if you're entering into that coaching space, it would not be a bad idea at all to get yourself a coach to help you along that pathway. There are certain sort of boxes that you're going to want to check. What sort of training are you going to do? Are you looking specifically at like ICF things? And I think ICF is wonderful, but it's also not essential. It is in many ways, for the most part, it's an unregulated space. You could do nothing at all today and put up a website tomorrow that says you're a coach, and nobody's going to stop you. And nobody's going to say, oh, well, he's not really qualified. I think personally that you do need to go and get as much training, as much education as you think is appropriate, as can get you to the level you want to be. And by all means, don't stop.
Right.
You can you can earn one designation over here or a different designation over there. But there are so many great lessons that come from different programs and different plans. I would say avail yourselves of as many as you possibly can and be realistic about it.
I know it's a hard truth that coaching industry is not regulated at all. When we're talking, did you mention that ICF is also not regulated, or are you talking about more the coaching in general?
No, the entire industry is not regulated, and I know that there are some people who say, "Oh, well, ICF is the way that somebody ought to go," and I think for some people that's absolutely correct, and for other people, they would say, "Well, I don't know, I'm not sure about that path. I like the things that I learned over at this program, and they've worked for me, and I have the successful clients who will demonstrate clearly that what I learned was right and how I delivered it and offered it and provided them with the accountability and the support was right." So I think it really is to one of those to each their own sort of situations.
Hey, Jeff, so let me ask you this about the misconception that a lot of people have in coaching profession. How do you express that?
I think there are so many misconceptions in coaching that the easiest way to explain it is to say this: counseling is looking backwards. Here's what's happened. Here's an opportunity to address those things that took place in the past. Coaching is all about looking forwards. It's all about the future. It is about saying, all right, here's where you are on Monday. And here's where you would like to be on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And how do we get there? How do we move forward? How do we hold you accountable for your own actions to get from Monday to Tuesday, to get from Tuesday to Wednesday, to get from being a mid-level player to an exceptional player to a world-class player? And once you're able to set that sort of distinction, I think you are really good to go in terms of just tackling that biggest misconception about coaching.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. So one of the things that I've realized is those people who start their career in coaching, the trend is sometimes I feel like, and, talking to various people, I've noticed this as well, that this particular industry, this particular career, it won't last that long. But you've been doing that for so many years. What keeps you going?
Yeah. For me, it is that personal accomplishment, that feeling of accomplishment I get when I see a client reach their goals and achieve their goals and maximize their potential. I help people to do things that I am never, ever personally going to do. I again fall back on the sports metaphor. I'm never going to hit a home run. It doesn't matter how much coaching I get. I just don't have that ability. But for someone to come to me and say, I'm pretty good at sales, but I'd like to be great, or I'm okay in terms of parenting with my special needs child, but I owe them more. I'd really like to be great, or I'd like to be the best. To help those folks go from where they are to where they would like to be. That's my reward. That is absolutely positively a big smile on my face when somebody comes back and says, I did do exactly what you told me to do. Now, the problem with that, of course, and sometimes you want to correct them and not, but is to say to them, I didn't tell you to do anything. Yeah. You said you wanted to do such and such. I kind of helped you a little bit to see how you would do that. I appreciate you giving me the credit, but the credit's really yours. You did what you needed to do to get to that next step, to be bigger, to be better.
You're just a helping hand there. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jeff, any kind of special project that you're working on right now that we need to be aware of? Anything in that coaching space that you're thinking of doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I just put together a chapter, which is included in a brand new book. It's called Elevate and Empower.
That's your book?
Already Elevate and Empower. It's already a #1 Amazon bestseller. I share in my chapter some of the stories, some of Julia's quest for cookies. I have a number of upcoming speeches. I just got back from Chicago, where I was fortunate to share Julia's quest for cookies. And the easiest way that people can take a look at that or visit with me if they'd like, you can just go to the website, jeffkatz.us, and you can reach out there. We can chat about stuff. You can see what my projects are. It'll provide you as well with the opportunity to take a look at the Quest for Cookies speech that I love so much. That's up there as well.
Right. It's Jeff at Katz. I just want to mention that to the listeners who are listening to the shows if they wanted to go in your website.
Yeah.
Jeff, we're coming towards the end of the show. So before we, take apart, I would like to open up this floor for you that, feel free to share your thought, your request, and whatever it's in your mind that you felt like, during our conversation, I couldn't get that out.
Well, I don't know that there's anything I couldn't get out, because I think you did I know you did a great job. You are a gracious and hospitable host, my friend, and you're an excellent podcaster. So I had a wonderful time, and I just appreciate the opportunity to be able to share some of this. I would say that I'd love to have people, again, visit the website, jeffkatz.us, jeffkatz.us, and that can fill people in on me. There's all the contact information there if people really are interested in reaching out. If you'd like me to come perhaps and share some of my lessons with your group or your organization, I'm happy to do that. Somebody who is thinking about getting into the coaching space, if I can help that way, I'd be more than happy to chat with somebody who is thinking, well, I'd like to go down that path. I'd like to help some people there. I'm just available in that way. I'd love to be able to help and give back any way that I can, and share my love for our collective coaching journey, and maybe provide one or two pieces of guidance to those who are thinking about getting on the road to it.
Thank you so much, Jeff. You have a great day.
Thank you. You do the same, my friend.
That was Jeff Katz in conversation with Pravin Sharma at Insight Ignite Coaching's Coaching Voices podcast. You can contact Jeff at jakatz@live.com. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Coaching Voices podcast. I hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights into the world of coaching and leadership. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps others find the show and supports us in continuing to bring you inspiring content. Do not forget to share this episode with anyone you think might benefit from the discussion. And if you're looking to explore coaching further or have any questions, please feel free to connect with us. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep growing, keep leading, and stay curious.